And this is why I'm struggling, because like you can just tell by how Anya is around Curly that she feels safe with him. I think that scene just changed everything. I think it just kind of put a lot of this stuff together for me. Hello, and welcome back to Therapist Plays Mouthwashing. Okay, so this game continues to be quite an emotionally challenging experience to play and talk about. Not just from subject matter and storytelling point of view, but most especially in character development. I'll let you see my thoughts play out organically on what I think about these characters, but let's just say that things are not adding up with the way that they're presented. And some stuff is adding up way too much. And yeah, there's some highs and some lows in this episode. And we will get serious about discussing some of those topics as they come up. But I also hope that you can find something of joy to take away from these episodes as well. So with that all said, let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back. All right. I've sufficiently recovered from my crash out, my corporate nightmare crash out at the end of the last episode. And now I do this for a reason. You know, I really try to get into the mindset of the characters because it helps me understand their pathos and their decision making. And especially when that decision making is very flawed and like from a distance, like we can't make sense of it. Like I wouldn't act like that. I wouldn't say some of the fucking awful things that Jimmy is saying or whatever. Then it's very hard to sort of like understand their actions and their decisions. So we have to get into character, right? That's what I like to do. I could relate to a lot of the like frustrations that Jimmy is having with his employers, the whole just like corporate situation that he's in. But what I said last time is that I cannot relate or justify how he is acting on those feelings because he's starting to take it out on everyone else, which is not being a good leader and not being a good person, which are two distinct qualities that sometimes go hand in hand. And because I've been trying to get so intimately involved in the thought process by accessing some of my own like experiences, something has actually confused me since this last episode, because actually what I said in the very first episode, and like the first 30 seconds basically was like, I didn't get the vibe that Curly was crashing the ship because he is, one, having some sort of like break from reality and didn't know what he was doing, or two, was doing it because he's inherently a bad person. I was getting at like, he seems to have a very normal emotional range, or I would imagine that he does. And something has happened that's kind of limited that range, and he can no longer access like the things on the fringe that help him understand what he's doing to other people, what his impact on other people will be, right? Like he's losing that sense of empathy. I said all that about Curly because that's what we've been suggested to intuit based on just the structure of the game so far. But now that we're like a couple hours in, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it from Curly, really. I've been given a lot of evidence that shows me that Curly is, as I gather, that he has a pretty normal emotional range, and he has acted on that emotional range several times, right? Whether that's like in his conversations with Anya and sort of being able to understand like the discomfort she felt about the psyche vow with Jimmy, the sort of pressure she feels to live up to like both internalized and externalized standards for her work. He was able to connect with Swansea and sort of understand his frustrations with Daisuke. But at the same time, separate that from like, hey, you're also being quite overbearing and dismissive of Daisuke, right? Which is also not good leadership. Like, there's a lot going on with Curly that suggested to me that he's not trending in this direction from what we've seen so far. You know who is trending in that direction? Jimmy's trending in that direction. Jimmy is the one who I had to to get into his mindset was to think about how unfair the situation that I'm in is, and who can I blame for it? It's the fucking Pony Express's fault, and it's Curly's fault, right? And who else can I sort of take this out on? Yeah, he's taking some of it out on Anya, right? That's all like the displacement that we were sort of touching on, right? Here. We're not taking our emotions out on the real targets. We're taking it out on just whoever is accessible. And seeing him be pushed in that direction, I mean, Jimmy didn't start off with that great of an emotional range, certainly not as much as Curly, but he's showing less and less of it. So I think back to the beginning of the game and what we saw, and it doesn't make sense to me that Curly would do that. It makes sense that Jimmy would do that. Jimmy would want to fuck him up real good. He would want to make it hurt as much as possible. And I feel that very strongly because I was getting into character of Jimmy and thinking, yeah, how do I fuck someone up? I don't want to live in that headspace that long because things could get dangerous. So I'm just going to let the story play out before I make any sort of grand predictions. But something isn't adding up, let's say. But I'm open to be persuaded that things are not as they might originally seem. So, let's continue here. We just got out of I guess it was like a dream sequence where we chopped Curly in half. And now we're back to 4 months after the crash. Okay, we gotta go find the crew. Let's see if they're in the mess hall. Lounge. Okay. There's Anya. She's got the mouthwash. Anya. Oh, you startled me. Sorry. No worries. You thinking about drinking that too? Honestly, yeah. It'd probably just make me feel sick. Wouldn't fix anything. As much as I'd like it to. Right. Hey, I was thinking, did you know that not all of the medicine aboard was in my office? We store some in a storage locker in the hallway. Why haven't you brought this up earlier? Okay, this is another sign of bad leadership. I'll come back to this shortly. Let's let this play out a little bit. But remember this comment. Why haven't you brought this up earlier? It was foamed up. I didn't think it was possible to reach it. But I've been estimating the position of the foam. I think the medicine depot locker isn't too far from into the mass of it. So we could try to break it down. One strike too many on a weak spot will all get sucked into space. I think it's worth the risk. If nothing else, it's an excuse to get Swansea to hand over the axe. Okay, so we're gonna break the foam. Okay. Here's the thing. Okay, and this isn't even just about like leadership or work environments. I'm just gonna give you some practical advice for any kind of interpersonal dynamic that's helpful for you. And this is about confrontation. Okay, when you have to do some kind of confrontation with someone, whether that's you're someone's boss and you have to tell them, you know, that they're not doing something or that you need something from them, whether you are the employee and you need to confront your boss on something, whether this is your significant other and you want to confront them on, you know, that they haven't been paying as much attention to you as you'd like, or whatever it is, right? Maybe it's a child that you're confronting. Maybe you're the parent. All kinds of confrontation this is valid for. Most of the time, we fumble with confrontation because we don't consider what we are confronting about this person. right? When Jimmy said to Anya, why didn't you bring this up earlier? He is confronting her punctuality. He's confronting like her rationale, her common sense, her respect for him. Why didn't you bring this up earlier, right? He's maybe even confronting like some of her intelligence. So a lot of things are being confronted here. One, it's not super clear which of these is the priority. And two, these are very like personal qualities of Anya, which immediately provokes like defensiveness and a need to justify not just what you did, but like who you are as a person, right? Like, why didn't you think that was a good idea? Why didn't you think that that was important to bring up? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Like, we start feeling like, oh, okay, so this person thinks I am lazy or I leave things behind. They think I'm stupid. They think I don't know how to solve problems. They don't trust me. They don't think I have basic common sense, and they don't think that I'm taking the situation seriously, right? Like, it's confusing. It's confronting. And I don't get what I want, which is, you know, to sort of solve this problem or understand the problem better, like if I'm confronting someone about this. And Anya doesn't get what she wants, which is to not be like dismissed or insulted, right? So this is just a bad way to confront people. But you see it all the time, right? This is obviously like a workplace thing, but like, imagine this is a relationship dynamic and it's like, why didn't you call me sooner, right? Or you didn't think I would want to know about that, right? Like, what are we confronting? Well, we're confronting a lot of the same things. We're confronting whether someone has been considerate of us. We're confronting that person's priorities. Was there someone more important, right? Like, it just gets messy. So the better way to confront people is actually not to confront that person or their personality or their opinions or ideology or any personal characteristics, but actually to just confront the behavior that we see, okay? Because this is like a very neutral thing. It's just your observation, right? Which is very depersonalized to begin with, right? It's a lot more like neutral, but also can be more collaboratively put to say like, hey, this thing was due at this time. It's important that it arrives on time, right? To confront this situation, it would have been better said to say something like, all of us need to be informed of important things like that, right? Next time, make sure that like that information gets to us as soon as you have it, right? It's much less antagonistic and hostile and like personally cutting to just point out the behavior that needs to be changed and confront that. Because I'm much more clear about what I want from you. Because if I'm confronting your intelligence, like, why didn't you bring that up sooner? How do I give you more intelligence from myself? Like, it just doesn't work, right? But if you confront a behavior, like, you've just given me actionable steps to do something about it, right? And so I'll just go back to like my whole units discussion to say that, yeah, when this was confronted with me, like the confrontation was not like, it's important that these services get on time and that they're done at this quality, which would have just been a very clear expectation for me to ask. It's like, hey, what were you doing in the middle of the afternoon that this didn't get done, right? It was confronting like my personality and my intellect and my use of time and whether I cared about things, like, and so it feels like shit to be confronted that way. When if someone just said, these are the expectations, these are the things you have to do, here's when they're due, fine with that. People are generally pretty fine having their behaviors confronted, generally not so fine having their personal qualities attacked, right? Because it always will feel like that. And the other problem is that you could be totally correct. You could be 100% correct about like, Anya absolutely dropped the ball and should have brought that sooner. Let's say that objectively the information is correct that you want to confront, but you will fail to teach that lesson or encourage new behavior when you confront the person, because then we're sort of like withdrawing into that criticism and internalizing it. Like, you just don't even really get what you want, right? It defeats the point of the confrontation and gets us nowhere. So this will be much more like digestible to say, like, it's important that that information reaches us as soon as you have it, right? Same thing, like I said, with the whole positive reinforcement thing. Like, all of us will be in better conditions if you're on top of this, right? We'll all be better at surviving this situation, you know? We'll see so much value in you from that. Like, none of that's happening. It's just like, why didn't you do this? What's wrong with you? It's just like really unhelpful, right? So it's another quality of Jimmy's that, one, it's evident he was not sort of like trained or scouted for leadership. Because like, yeah, you can learn this stuff, but part of it's also like just intuitively. Does he have the humanity, like the personal characteristics to not like be an asshole when he has any kind of authority? Probably not. And so they end up hurting people's feelings, not being able to recognize their negative impact on everyone around them and the quality of the work that's being delivered. And they also don't even really know how to tell people what they want or how to motivate them to do those things. Like, it's just a disaster, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people like Jimmy out there. So, yeah, not a good look, Jimbo. Let's see what he's got for Swansea. Now this looks like someone who is having a great time. What's up, Swansea? I can get down with it. I gotta get into character here. I gotta get into Swansea's mind. Jimbo! El Capitano! The man with a plan! You done? I need that. This whole thing? This was entrusted to me by our previous tragically inclined leader. Big responsibility. But you know all about that, huh? I'm going to try and get some more painkillers. Do something useful, you know? Again, doesn't know how to confront people on anything. Oh, I heard all about it. You're looking to pull the plug on this party early. I'm trying to save us. I'm not sold on that. Take matters into your own hands, eh? Be my guest. Uh-oh. What's going on? Are we about to get, like, depressed Swansea? What's up, Swansea? Talk to me. Think I already feel the ship rumba-tumbling through space again. Back to the Future. I do really feel for Swansea, though. Like, just that little detail about him, like, upholding his sobriety for so long, and it's the same situation with him, right? Like, extreme stress of the situation has also stifled his emotional range, which he needed all of, let's say, to withstand, like, the temptation for alcohol. Because, like, substances, they appeal to this state of mind. When our emotional range starts to get limited, we tend to only feel, like, quite negative things in here. The sadness, the regret, the anger, the feeling of being trapped, and like that's the kind of stuff that incentivizes like self-soothing, like harmful self-soothing, like substance use, and maybe even in extreme cases actual self-harm. And in very, very extreme situations, maybe even taking someone's own life. But that would take like basically there being nothing left at that point, right? Like you have to be pushed quite far. And you know, as someone who works in this field, and I've done quite a bit of counseling for people expressing that kind of ideation, this is the perspective that I typically hold, right? something happened to cause them to enter that state of mind, and something can happen to bring them out of it, right? Like, you can expand the emotional range with a lot of work as well. It's certainly not easy, but it's not an unsolvable situation. Okay, let's take the axe. I guess we're chopping into the foam here. Oh, should we check on Curly? You know, another part of my, like, sort of the vibe I was getting with Jimmy, especially in the last episode. Like, for someone who does not like Curly very much, because he is blaming him for everything, Jimmy seems abnormally invested in giving him the painkillers. And I was sort of wondering if that was because he doesn't like the noise that he's making. Maybe he doesn't want him to talk. What have you got to say, Curly? What could you say? I guess nothing right now. Oh, there's Daisuke. What is he doing on the floor? How many have you had? Those will kill you before anything else. I know. My mom found this internship for me. Such a slacker, she said. I don't know. I just never knew what I wanted to be. Never was good at anything. Total screw up. We're not done yet, Daisuke. I just hope she doesn't blame herself. Please, just take it. I don't want to look at this stuff anymore. Man, I feel for this kid. I mean, we all can feel like this at certain points, even in our adult lives, but especially when you're like still early in development, young, not a ton of maturity, growth, or life experience yet. Like, it's very easy to sort of personalize bad things that happen to you and say like, oh, you know, I put myself in this bad situation, or I ended up here, and it's all my fault. I'm always going to fail at things. And it's like, nothing about what's happening right now is because of you. Like, nothing. And that's a very hard thing to get across to like teenagers. You know, whenever I do therapy with like people of that age range, it's difficult because you want to empower them to say like, you have a lot of like agency in your life. There's a lot of things that you can still influence and still control, and you still have so much time to figure these things out, and plenty of time to make mistakes and adjust for them. And you know, you're just sort of pitching this like idea that like they should be empowered, but at the same time you're trying to disempower them from feeling like stuff that was never in their control actually is. And it's like, oh, well, like this person broke up with me. I must be like so unattractable and so unwanted. You know, my schooling or my internship or my first job didn't work out. Like, I must just be like innately a failure and incapable of change. And it's like, no, I want to empower these like areas of your mind that can do things, and disempower this idea that you're so in control of all the conditions of your life, and that must be why if something bad happens, it's all your fault, right? It's kind of a delicate balance to find. I do hope we find some resolution for Daisuke, though. Can we get him home, please? He's still got so much of his life left to live. Okay, so I believe she said that there's some foam in the hallway to medical, and you can see the locker. Is it this? Yeah, it must be this. And the axe. Use the axe. Chop! 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 Oh, we do actually have more meds. Some isopropyl alcohol. Painkillers. Okay, not a ton left though. Where'd Anya go? Oh, there she is. Oh, wow, Jim. You did it. Yeah, it actually wasn't that hard once I figured it out. Amazing, really? Sure. God, he can't even, like, fucking take a compliment. I hate to ask you again, but could you give Curly his painkillers? It still just... It just makes me so nauseous. You're not serious. Look, I've entertained your sentimentality up until now, but I'm trying to actually fix things, Anya! What the hell was that? I'm getting us through this. It's find the code scanner. Then figure out the door code. Then get the axe. Chop up the foam, but not too much. And best of all, give Curly his fucking medicine. But I'm bearing it. I have to. Because the captain has to take fucking responsibility on this goddamn ship. I'm sorry. What is happening here? I didn't mean to. Go make sure Daisuke doesn't choke on his own vomit. No, I can... I'll take care of it, Anya. I always do. Taking responsibility. Okay, well... Yeah, I mean, he's convinced himself that, like, doing things is the same thing as taking responsibility for them, which it's not, right? The whole problem with displacement is that you basically don't take ownership of your own feelings, right? Like, you don't really know what to do with the emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's frustration with the situation, like all these like pretty justifiable things to have in this context, but not taking ownership of who you're delivering them to or why that person is suddenly like the appropriate target for it. To me, like taking responsibility means admitting the capacity for fault, which so far we've not really seen from Jimmy. He's not like holding himself accountable for anything. He's holding everyone else accountable. And actually it fits pretty well with like this whole confrontation thing, right? Like this is not like holding yourself accountable or taking responsibility for your role as a leader in someone's life. It's like asking the other person to be accountable to their innate personality flaws when you like do this kind of shit, right? Like, which is really fucked up and toxic. As an aside, if you're Anya in this situation and you're being confronted like this, it's a tough thing to deal with when you're just being shouted at or insulted. But one technique or two techniques, I guess, that you can do if you're receiving that sort of thing is you kind of do it for them. Like you confront the behavior yourself and sort of shortcut, bypass all of the personal critique that's levied at you. Like if someone's like, Brady, you fucked up this, and why did you think it was a good idea to do that? And like all of these things are wrong. I'm just gonna basically ignore all of that, and I'm gonna listen to like, what is the actual thing that this person wants? And I'm gonna say, you want that report sooner. Well, yes, I would. Can't you do that? Can't you be on time with that, right? You want it sooner. Like you just sort of repeat, like this is called being a broken record. You just continue to like repeat back the same thing because like this tends to cause people to like stop, basically. It really cuts off a lot of persistence from people, especially if you can isolate that one thing and sort of like shortcut to beyond all the personal stuff. Like, you know, you were late yesterday and you were doing all this stuff and blah, 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 and like you don't get your work done on time, and you'd like to see those things corrected, right? Well, yes, I'd like you to show up and be happy about it and all this sort of stuff, right? Like, you want me to be professional. Well, yes, I'd like you to do that and blah, 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 blah. You'd like to see them sooner and you'd like for me to be a professional. Like, you just sort of circle around this, and most of the time people give up. or they run out of ways to say the same thing, and it just kind of gets you out of the conversation. And so you're just taking all the emotion out of it, basically. You're not personalizing it, you're not buying into that, you just sort of isolating what that person clearly wants from you, repeating it back to them until they stop. And then go give them that thing if like you're really responsible for it, right? It's taking a lot more responsibility than the person losing their mind over like your whole personhood. They typically don't have enough insight to even realize that like they want something done rather than, oh, I want this person to change for me. Like that's not really even what you should want. Like that's just being kind of a control freak. So yeah, I'm struggling. I'm struggling to stay in that mindset, Jimmy. You're losing me. Okay. We're gonna do the painkillers thing. I'm gonna have to endure this again. I don't think I understood the pressure you were under before. Fuck. And you try to tell me. Rare moment of self-reflection from Jimmy? Our worst moments don't make us monsters, huh? You were a good captain, Curly, and you'll be one again. I'll get us both through this. I think just like hearing Curly cry as that happens is like one of the most disturbing things so far. Like even beyond some of the graphic imagery and whatever else, like just that simple moment of like human despair for someone who is in like a situation where they have lost completely everything except for their like the most basic level of consciousness, and knowing you can't do anything about it. It's just horrifying. Jimmy, get the fuck out here. What? What is this? 6 hours until judgment. This is post-crash. What are we doing? What are we doing here? You can't hide! I got the rope. What am I doing? My hands won't stop shaking. What is this? What is this? What is happening here? What is going on? Metal pipe. I'm gonna chop you into 20 fucking pieces. Okay, people are coming after Jimmy. What did he do? What have I done? I'm panicking. I'm panicking. Use the pipe. Use the rope. Oh my God! The fucking whiplash! 2 days before the crash. Okay. Something is happening to Jimmy. Something from where we were just doing the painkillers with Curly until then. Something that gets them to turn on him. You doing okay? Okay, we're Curly again. Yeah. Can't sleep. I know how that is. I just toss and turn. Or stare at the ceiling all night. I actually kind of like the nighttime window screen. If you can believe it. So I just come look at it sometimes. If you look really, really close, you can see there's a dead pixel in the upper right corner. That's so. No, I don't see it. In the back of my mind, it's always there. Now I'll go bonkers looking for it. And this is why I'm struggling, because, like, you can just tell by how Anya is around Curly that she feels safe with him. You know, part of having a healthy emotional range is not just that it helps you be effective in your own life, because you can experience all kinds of complex emotions on the fringes of that range, but it's a very welcoming feeling to be around that by other people who may have a more limited range themselves, right? And a lot of times it's trauma that creates that. We're sort of seeing with Jimmy how psychological pressure and, you know, a life-threatening situation and all these sort of things are compressing his emotional range. And that he's sort of buying into it. He's having a bit of a power trip. Well, a lot of a power trip. He's taking things out on people, like he's advancing it in this direction on purpose, right? And in fact, sometimes we find ourselves doing that because maybe we like the idea of turning those emotions off. Maybe there's something extreme that I wish I could do if I only didn't have to feel so much. So maybe I want to go that way. Maybe I do just want to say fuck it to all of this stuff. But for most people, at least I like to think, for most people, if we're stuck over here, it happened by accident, and we want to go back. We want to go back the other way so desperately, you know, that we'll go looking for advice. We'll go looking for guidance. We'll go looking for just someone who you feel emotionally secure with that helps you get in touch with some of those like really hard to access emotions. One of which I would say, the most important, is empathy for yourself. It's very hard to love yourself and find good things to see in yourself when you are constantly bombarded by people personally critiquing you, pointing out your negative flaws, defining your mistakes as like character defects, not just as decisions that you made. And to me, when she talks about a dead pixel, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like one of those little screens going out, you know, that she's lost. Like, I've sort of lost that ability to empathize for myself, which is just so heartbreaking. She's been degraded and beaten down, and it's just in a situation where there's not a lot of hope, and maybe there's just not a lot of people who are inspiring her to go looking for that dead pixel, right? That little space that you hold for liking yourself, caring about yourself. So what happened to Anya? Why is she looking for a way back here? Cheers. I don't think it ruins the illusion, though. It's peaceful. But maybe I'm just used to looking at the bigger picture. How many days of transport do we have left? Let's see. Off the top of my head, around 237 days. Just under 8 months. Hey. Why do you think Pony Express put a lock on the medical room door, but not in the sleeping quarters? I suppose for the same reason they put a lock on the cockpit. Safety. Did someone do something to Anya? Someone did something to her. I think that scene just changed everything. I think it just kind of put a lot of this stuff together for me. You know, like I was saying earlier, when I try to get into these characters' heads, I do so because it's funny and it's, you know, it's part of the role play and it's part of my enjoyment in acting and that sort of thing. But part of it is also, you know, it's my job to read people. And some of that comes from intuition, you know, being able to read when emotions are half expressed, or how to detect when someone who may have a normal emotional range has had something happen that's like sort of suffocating it. And what sort of things that they say. There's exercises that you'll do in play therapy or art therapy for kids, but even sometimes for adults who have childhood trauma. And you may ask them to draw a family, right? For example, draw your household. It's one of the most heartbreaking, genuinely heartbreaking things to see someone who, you know, maybe a completely grown adult, and then what they're drawing is often a very childlike rendition of someone in danger, you know. They'll draw a house with like no windows on it and the child outside. There's often like depictions that the person in the drawing, them, is often displaced from like where they're supposed to be safe. And you often look at those drawings and you can sort of start to understand that this person may have experienced some kind of assault, right? Often sexual assault. And those are great therapeutic exercises because they allow us to start exploring what are very challenging, confronting subjects, very sensitive ones, without having to directly speak about and process them. And so you're often listening for how they describe things as well, and sort of like kind of vague ways that they put out questions or concerns or information about things, like, is this supposed to happen this way? Is that thing supposed to feel like that? If you start detecting that kind of insecurity, it helps you sort of be led in that direction that, yeah, something horrific has happened in this person's life. Often the evidence that tells us, you know, their emotional range has been compromised by one of those traumatic events. And Anya talking about why there's no locks on the bedroom doors tells me that something really bad happened to her. And I wonder who fucking did it. I'll tell you this. I can tell you with full confidence, it wasn't Curly. In fact, I haven't seen a single thing from Curly that makes me doubt his character. Does that mean he's not a flawed individual? No. Okay. There are probably some things that he could have done better in this situation, but like, he's doing the one fundamental thing that's important, which is holding space for people's vulnerabilities, making them feel safe and trusted, and giving them an environment to like express themselves. Wait. It's Daisuke. What, Jimmy, help. This is sort of interrupting my emotional tangent here, but what's happening? What is it? Jimmy, it's a total emergency. Calm down. What is it? Anya is stuck in medical. The door won't open. What if she runs out of something? Right. Let's go have a look. Okay. So I guess we'll continue that discussion in the next episode. This is gonna get so fucked up though, because like, if I'm being led in this direction, that one, it seems like Jimmy has a lot more probable cause to have fucked all of this up to begin with. And two, if he has done what's being suggested he's done, there's very few redeemable spaces of his mindset that I can force myself to occupy. And at the same time, me as the player character and as Brady, I want to go help Anya, but I have to do it from fucking Jimmy's perspective. Well, I guess we're going to be coming in hot at the beginning of next episode, and most likely, just considering the length of this game, for the final episode. But I do just want to, pause here before the very end. Say that, if you're someone who has experienced something like what we're talking about here, or even if you know someone, right? It is possible to access some of those things that may seem completely impossible. And like Anya was saying, maybe you feel like they're no longer even a part of you anymore. That's something that a lot of victims of sexual assault feel, is that there's so much shame and guilt and confusion about why something like that happened to them, and sometimes why they didn't fight harder or advocate for themselves, or why they waited to tell someone. Like, there's so much shame inherently built in with the traumatic event that often prevents us from exploring those experiences. And for very good reason. It's a very hard experience to revisit. And that's why so much of therapy is focused on slowly providing the person with, one, a safe space to share those things, but two, going at whatever pace is necessary to begin expanding that emotional range again and rediscovering the things that are needed to replace that shame and that sense of self-loathing with a sense of self-love. Personally, I don't think that that's something that anyone else can ever take away from you, but they can certainly make it hard to find again. On that note, I think we're going to end it here. Hopefully, I'm hoping that in this last episode, we get some closure on some of these things. I don't know, there's what I'm seeing from these scenes with Curly. They give me some hope that like there's maybe a decently positive emotional message waiting for me at the end of this game. I fucking hope so, because I don't want to be feeling like Daisuke at the end of this. Oh man. Okay, well, we're gonna cut it off here. I will see you all again next time for what I assume will be the finale. Please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon. Till next time.